Hi everyone, welcome to another tutorial from C4D Cafe. My name is 3D Kiwi. Today a tutorial on using images or textures, often referred to as textures, in materials, and then applying those materials onto objects. So I'm going to go through various texture mapping modes. I'm going to go through and show you the texture axis tool, or working in texture mode in axis modification mode. Don't worry if you don't understand what I'm talking about, I'll go through and explain it. Now this is a second tutorial in a series of tutorials about using materials. The first one was getting started with materials. If you are a beginner to Cinema 4D and you haven't watched that one, getting started with materials, I suggest that you watch that one first. So this one follows on from that one, and I'm going to move along a little bit quicker in this one. So I'm assuming you're familiar with the basics of Cinema 4D. Now I'm recording the tutorial using release 15. If you're using release 14, you will be able to follow along without any problems. But if you're running release 13 or earlier, there's just a couple of minor changes, and it's all to do with the texture mode. So if I just show you what I'm talking about, come up to here. This is the texture tool that I call, but it's actually texture mode. So if you hover the mouse over it, it'll say use texture mode. In release 13 and earlier, there was actually two. And one was what they would call texture mode, and then the other one was texture axis mode, and I call them texture axis tool and texture tool. So in release 14, Maxon combined them all into one, and you change the mode of the texture tool just by coming down and just going into axis mode there. So you click on there, we're in texture mode now, and then the mode that you would use almost all of the time here, you would click on the axis. So there is what I would refer to as the old texture axis tool. Disable or go out of axis modification mode and you get the old texture tool, or you're in texture mode. But I'll come to that a little bit later on. But as I say, if you're running release 14 or 15, you'll be able to follow along without any problems at all. So let's get started. So let's create a plane object so that we've got something to apply a material onto. So create a plane, and I'm going to change the orientation from the default +Y to -Z, or -Z as the Americans would say. And create a material. Come down to the material manager, double click to create a new material. So I want to load in an image or a texture into the color channel, and there are a number of ways to do it, so I'll go through. So you can click on the little button there, and we'll do that in a moment, okay? Or you can click on the great big long button there, and usually that one is where you've got something loaded, either a texture or you've got a shader loaded and you want to edit it. But first time around, you can actually load a texture or an image by clicking on it, or the one that I usually use is over here. And then there are other ways, and we'll come to those in a moment. So I'm going to click on the button there. Okay, up will pop my open file dialog. If you're running a Mac computer, I think it's pretty much the same. And then you just navigate to where you've got an image file or a texture file. And when I say image or texture, they're interchangeable, okay? So by that, I mean a bitmap file, a JPEG file, a PSD file, PNG, TIFF file, just an image file. And I just happen to be in the right place. So I've got this one here, okay? I can see a preview. I'm running Windows 7, so I can click on there and get a preview. So it's just some text, okay, that I created in a Paint program, and you can either double click and that will just sort of load it up, or you can just select it and click open. Now you will get a dialog here, all right, and it says this image is not in the project search path. Do you want to create a copy at the project location? So let's try both and see what happens. So I'm going to click on no, and let's see what we get. Okay, the image file is loaded, okay, and I can just apply that onto the plane object and it will render, no problems at all. Now let's just come back to the settings. So I want to get back to the settings, so just click on it. Okay, now if we come down here, when you click on no, it creates an absolute path to where that file is on your computer, and that's fine. The problem that you've got is if you want to use your scene on another computer or someone else's computer, you know, you want to share it with someone else, when they load it, it will be looking, you know, for that path there for the image. A better way is actually to click yes and create a copy, because it does it with relative paths, and I'll show you what I mean. So let's just sort of click undo. So we haven't got that loaded. Okay, so this time I'm going to click on there, hold the mouse button down, come up to load image. Okay, click it, open. Do you want to create a copy at the project location? Now if I click on yes, okay, apply it, let's see what happens. Render it. It renders okay. Now it actually hasn't created a copy of it. I think it's saved it somewhere on your computer that you'll never find. Okay, so if we just come back to our material, it's created a relative path to it, but don't ask me where it is, because I don't know. What you actually need to do is you need to save your file first. So somewhere on your computer at the moment, it's created a file. So what you've got to do, let's just undo that. So I hope I haven't confused anyone. You actually need to save your file. You know, you can see here, untitled. I haven't saved the scene, so let's save it. So file, save. Okay, so just type in a name here, you know, I don't know, using images. Okay, that's cool. Let's just do it again. We'll click on the big button, load my image in, click open. Do you want to create a copy at the project location? Yes. You know, I can apply it and it will render fine. But this time, if I come into my file manager, so I'll fire up my file manager, there is my scene file using images that I just saved. Don't worry about that Capture One Camrec. That's the video file. That was the introduction that you've just watched. That's just happened to be saving it in the same place. What happened when we clicked on yes was a folder called text was created. Let's double click to go in there, and there's my file there that was copied, and I just happened to be running a dual pane file manager. There's where the file is on my computer, so it was copied there. That's sort of, you know, documents temp on a PC was where I created the file. It was copied from there into the file there. So if we, this one, just go up, so a relative path was created, you know, from the scene file into text. All right, if we close that down, just click on the material to get settings back. So now if I was to, you know, copy the scene file and that text file to my laptop, you know, it'll work, because it's a relative, you know, it's using a relative path to that texture file, so it will load and run perfectly fine on my laptop or someone else's computer. As I say, if you don't save your scene file, I think it's somewhere on your computer, but don't ask me where. Now, if anyone knows the answer of where it is, you can reply in the forums at the cafe. Now, there are other ways to load in images, and I'll show you. You can use the content browser, so let's sort of drag that out the way and we'll do it again. Okay, so let's create another plane and